This is Joshua Hart here for Seconds Out. Delighted today to be joined by Jamie Moore here over Zoom. Jamie, really appreciate your time this afternoon. And how is everything, mate?
Oh, good. Thanks, Josh. You?
Very, very good. All the better for being joined by yourself today. We'll get straight into things. A busy stable as ever for yourself, and a lot of talking points with it, I suppose. And we'll start off with the biggest one, I'd say, May 17th, the rematch, Johnny Fisher versus Dave Allen 2. A really close fight back in December. They run it back straight away. Um, was there any point over these last few months where you thought maybe the rematch wasn't going to be next for Dave?
Yeah, it was only recently, really. It sort of looks like, or we heard anything about a rematch. Obviously, there was rumours about it, and people was sort of hearing whispers that there was going to look to take the rematch. Then there was other rumours about Johnny's going to take a fight in between, and that was understandable. See, with him being so early on in his career, so um, it sort of came out of the blue, really. Dave was sort of saying maybe we're going to have to sort of look in a different direction. I'll just keep busy and fight, just tick over. And then we got made an offer out of the blue, and it was didn't take long to sort of tie all the loose ends up, and then it was done. And then back before we knew it, was in London on Friday during the press conference.
One thing that seems different from the build up to the first fight, looking at that launch press conference on Friday, is there's still that respect there between the two, but there's not so much friendliness between them now. You can tell that there's a bit of tension, especially on that Johnny Fisher end where he knows that there's a wrong to right there. Do you feel Johnny might be feeling a bit more pressure this time than what he felt going into that first fight?
Well, you'd imagine so. I think that's human nature. Well, first of all, everybody expected him to beat Dave the first time, and by all intents and purposes, they thought it was going to be an easy job. He was going to go in there and probably 3 or 4 rounds, he would have him out of there, and that wasn't the case. We knew that wasn't going to be the case as long as Dave was fit and was ready, which he was. Um, but he wasn't as fit and ready as he could be. I said this at the presser. I think he was around about 60% really, and the decision was what it was. And Dave had a few weeks off over Christmas. Was straight back in the gym in January, and he's picked up where he left off, and he's sort of he's probably around about as fit as he was for the fight now, and we've still got 10 weeks left. So yeah, in all honesty, Josh, I don't really tend to worry about the other guy, regardless of who the fighter is. Um, I'm always very confident in my fighters and their ability, and as long as we do our end of the job and get them fit and conditioned and ready, the sparring goes well. There's no injuries. I'm always confident in my fighters, and that's no disrespect to any of the other fighters in the opposite corner. It's just the understanding and belief I have in the fighters what we train.
Absolutely. You mentioned the scorecards being what they are, while very close and a lot of uproar, a lot of different opinions. Will you have any input on the judges this time round in terms of is there any judge you'd prefer to have judging and officiating?
Um, we'll, we'll see what happens near the time. I think regarding what happened last time, I'd imagine if any of the judges who was involved in the first fight had appointed, then I've got an idea that we'll probably ask for them to be changed. I just feel like you're better off with starting a fresh level playing field. No one who was involved in the first fight. Um, you know, in all honesty, from a neutral point of view, if if I'm Johnny Fisher, I wouldn't want the same people involved anyway because of the backlash last time. It could go against you. They might tend to sway heavily in Dave's favour because of the backlash what happened last time. So it it could have a negative impact on the decision. I don't want any type of controversy, regardless of whether it's positive or negative in our favour. The sport doesn't need stuff like that. the less controversy we have. The more we talk about the fight rather than the scoring and the judges or the refereeing, the better for me. So I'd rather there not be any instances where we have any type or any chance of it being controversial in any way, shape, or form.
Where can Dave Allen go if he is to beat Johnny Fisher in this rematch?
Listen, who knows? Dave, when Dave first turned pro, everyone was talking about him, raving about him because of his ability. He's always had that ability. He's never really been in a position to show it because he hasn't been conditioned and fit enough and dedicated himself to the sport. And I'm just glad for him. He's such a lovely guy. I'm just glad for him that it's come at a point in his life where it wasn't too late that he couldn't do anything about it. You know, stories about fighters starting in the Labour Club 20 years after they retired saying they should have been a world champion if only they'd have dedicated themselves to it. And Dave's got all that experience under his belt now, but he's still young enough and fresh enough to be able to have an impact. Whether that's winning the British title or beyond that, who knows? But he's certainly capable of winning a British title.
Just lastly on this fight, SJam tweeted out a video, I think yesterday, highlighting supposed illegal shots in the first fight. What do you make of them highlighting that so far after that first date?
I haven't seen that video. That's the first time hearing about it. What do you mean illegal shots? Illegal shots where?
So shots to the back of the head, so shots from the clinch and stuff that land just behind the ear or on the back of the head that weren't noticed by the referee.
Yeah, well, listen, on around the ear area is a legal shot. When a fight is falling forward, it doesn't mean that it's been done intentionally. If you're aiming for the side of the head and it goes round the back of it, I don't like shots round the back of the head myself. It's against the rules, and I disagree with fighters doing it. If it wasn't intentional, Dave's shots weren't intentional. The ones what went round the back of the head, from what I can remember in the fight, because I haven't watched it for a while. But listen, a fighter's team are going to do anything they can to try and get point score for their fighter. Trying to gain a little advantage here and there and stuff like that. Especially in a fight which was so close, like the first fight was. Um, I don't feel like we need to do anything like that. All we need to concentrate on is getting Dave in the right type of shape and conditioning, focused, make sure his mind's in the right place, and then hopefully the judges will do the job what they're supposed to do.
Absolutely. He's moving away from this fight, looking at another fighter in the stable that's got a big date. I guess two fighters have got a big date on the same bill. We'll go with Pat Brown first, headlining for his pro debut. I remember that big media launch that we had back at the back end of last year, going into the evening that they had. Have you ever been involved in someone turning over that I guess you could say has this much of a profile already, where they're headlining on their debut?
No, no, it's the first time I've seen been involved in anything as big as that. Um, the last time I saw it was probably AJ. That was the sort of biggest type of launch stuff. When AJ was turning over. Um, Pat takes it all in his stride. It's like water off a duck's back. He loves it. He just in all honesty, he doesn't like the the media side of it in terms of having to do it. He'd rather just focus on the fighting. He's not one of these fighters who wants to be well known and wants to be um, all over the media and stuff like that. He's a quiet, humble kid, such a nice kid as well. But he can fight. He can really fight. And I feel like as time goes on, the fighting's going to do the talking. He'll always be able to hold a conversation, and he's amicable and he's a likable guy. But when he gets a pair of boxing gloves on, he's a beast. And sparring's been going really well. Preparation's going really well. We're only a couple of weeks off now, and I'm excited about it. I can't wait.
And obviously, the unique part of it is while it's a pro debut and being the headliner, just to get one thing confirmed, how many rounds is his debut? Because it's one thing that I'm still unsure, and I'm sure many others
Yeah,
are.
it's the six rounder. It is, yeah.
Okay, so six rounder for the debut. obviously a lot of noise has been made about how good he is, and obviously we can look at that amateur pedigree that he's got. It speaks for itself. How quickly will we see him moved in his career?
I don't know. Let's see. I mean, he's got the type of ability and style where you wouldn't you your average prospect coming through, you'd imagine he'll be moved a bit quicker than them. But you don't want to rush things like this. I'm sure Eddie's investing a lot of money into him as well, so he'll want to make sure he does the job right. So we don't want to rush him, but he won't just be progressed as your average prospect will be. I'm pretty sure. Maybe by the time he's getting to 10 fights, he'll be around about fighting for the British title, that type of speed, because I don't want him going backwards, in all honesty. People get a false sense of where they're really at when they're going in there blasting people out of there who are not fit to be in the ring with him. And I'd rather good good prospects. We've done it with Cameron actually. We've matched him quite tough, and inside. If it was his seventh fight, he's fighting Gavin Gwynn, who was a former European champion. So um, that's probably a nice little blueprint or guideline. We'll probably move him along the way like we have done with Cameron Vuong.
Mentioned Cameron Vuong, a big date for him as well on the same night as he finally gets that grudge match with Jordan Flynn, especially off the back of the Gavin Gwynn fight, where again a lot of different opinions coming in the aftermath of it. How nice is it to not just get him in a comeback fight, but a comeback fight where there is still a real sense of threat going into it?
These are the fights what he needs to be involved in and wants to be involved in. And, you know, he learned so many lessons in the Gavin Gwynn fight. And that was the reason why we matched him with Gavin. And I said this in the build up to the fight. It's not because we believe it's an easy fight or Gavin's past it. It's because we know how tough it's going to be. But we understand how much he'll improve from it, especially in those later rounds when he's being dragged into the trenches. And he has. And he's been training brilliantly for this fight. His sparring's gone perfect. Preparation's going brilliant. He's really up for it, which is great to see. And everyone in the gym, Pat Conor Tusbury's on the same bill as well. Um, Everyone's just bouncing off each other at the minute. There's a real good vibe going on, and it's 10 rounder for Cameron in his eighth fight. It's his third 10 rounder in eight fights. So you've got to take your hat off to him. I think he should be getting a lot more credit than he actually gets, Cameron, for the type of opposition he's fought so far and the way he's dealt with it is unbelievable as far as I'm concerned, and he doesn't get the credit he deserves.
Just looking at that Gavin Gwynn fight, how impressed were you with not just obviously the boxing ability that he's got, but for composure? Because it was his first time where he really had to dig deep, and it did get tough for him, but he
Yeah,
showed that he's got the balls for it and came through on the right side of it.
yeah. I always knew he had that type of temperament for it, but or I thought you can see it in sparring. You can see it when they have tough rounds and they dig in deep. So so I sort of had a good idea that he'd be able to handle it, but you really don't know until they're actually under the cosh on the night. And he was in some real, high pressure rounds towards the end. And I just reminded him a few times in the corner. I said to him, "Listen, you made for this," and he really is. He was born to do it. And you can only get better from fights like that at that stage of his career. Made sure he had a good rest after it because he needed to. But as soon as he's come back and he started sparring, you can see the improvements he's made. He's really settled down now. Early on he was really high energy, high output, but you can see he's took the lessons on board with the type of matchmaking we've had for him, and he's improved a hell of a lot.
So just moving on to another fighter in the gym, Jack Catterall with a frustrating result last time out, a razor thin split decision defeat to Arnold Barboza Jr. Nearly a month on now from that night. How have you and the team reflected on it?
Yeah, I'm gutted for him, in all honesty. And like you say, it was one of those fights, could have gone either way. Um, and in hindsight, now thinking about it, he had such a long, busy year. Compared to where he's been at for the last few years, where inactivity was a killer for him. He sort of Matchroom was honest to the word, kept him busy like they said they was going to be. And then he boxed Josh Taylor, Prograis, and then Barboza within 12 months. And he was never out of the gym. So those are high profile, high end fights against world class opposition, and he was continuously in the gym. The first Taylor fight got postponed because Josh was injured, so that was a sort of extended training camp. He went straight back into training camp for Prograis, which was then an extended one because Jack got injured. So he had two extended training camps and then was straight back in the gym for the Barboza fight. So in hindsight, I just think he was a bit fatigued and burnt out. He wasn't overtrained as such. I think he was, physical and mental fatigue maybe. He just didn't look as on it as he has done in the past. That little bit of sharpness or that urgency towards the end just didn't seem to be there. And the only thing I can put it down to is he was just maybe a bit too sort of active in the gym, and at that level, you need to make sure that you get a good rest in between.
If you've watched back the fight, what do you feel Jack could have done differently on the night in the ring to have the result go in
I,
his
I
favour?
haven't watched it in all honesty. I said this to Jack the other day. I'm still a bit sick about it because he works so hard and he's had so many setbacks over the years, and he's such a beautiful kid. When things like that happen to any of my fighters, it just knocks me sick because I know the amount of work and effort he puts in. And if there was anyone what deserved, um, you know, to get the luck of the draw, it was him on that night. And unfortunately, we didn't get it. And we have to just push ourselves down and move on from it. And I'm a big believer everything happens for a reason. So for whatever reason it's going to be, we won't know until it happens. But when we look back, I'm pretty sure I said this to him again last week. I said I'm pretty sure that we'll look back at some point and go, "There we go. That's why it happened." But I'm gutted for him. But he came in the gym yesterday, he punched for the first time since the fight, and he was in good spirits. So I'm sure we'll get a plan together and we'll see what happens next.
Obviously, you mentioned getting a plan together. Have you got any rough ideas at the moment in how you're going to maneuver him back to a world title shot once he's back in the ring?
Well, I think we're going to plan on getting him out sort of end of June, July time. Um, I think we'll go over to New York and watch the show at Times Square there because these three fights there, what are at his weight. So it's worth us going over there and sitting, being present ringside, watching the guys, and he got beat on a split decision, so he's not the end of the world really. And we're at a time in boxing where the best are fighting the best, so it won't be long before an opportunity comes up for him. So he just needs to make sure that he's back in the gym now, he's ticking over, and if an opportunity comes up, we can take it.
You mentioned that Times Square card, obviously three fighters all at Jack's weight, Arnold Barboza being one of them. Is that just a little bit more of a signal? Obviously, not to put any more insult to injury, but
Yeah, of
seeing that,
course. Listen, for all intents and purposes, you're looking at it going, that should have been Jack or could have been Jack, and yeah, it's not nice, but it is what it is. You have to just accept these things. What can you do?
what do you make of, I guess, the idea, first of all, just moving away from that, of a boxing show in Times Square? It's very unique, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm fascinated to see how it plays out. So that was, we spoke about it the other day. Said, listen, we should definitely go over there and see. Um, but I like these things. Boxing, obviously for me, is the best sport in the world. Any way where we can sort of make it a little bit more interesting or appealing to people who are just maybe sort of casual boxing fans or not boxing fans at all, I'm all for. And stuff like this in one of the most famous places in the world. You know what I mean? Times Square is is it's going to be an unbelievable spectacle, and I'm glad. And, I wish Jack was part of it, but I'm just glad in general for boxing that he's getting this type of publicity.
Just looking at Barboza, obviously he goes on to face Teofimo Lopez. From what you've seen, and obviously not just the 12 rounds you watched of him against Jack, but preparing for Barboza as well, how big of a chance has he got going into a fight with Teofimo Lopez?
He's got a chance. I think in terms of the style, I don't know whether Teofimo's feet will be a little bit too active for him. But he's got very long arms. You know, when there's some points when you feel like you're out of distance and you're not with him. You know, he's got a real long range, and he sort of fights at quite a nice, busy little tempo. So that wasn't the case with Jack. Jack sort of is able to nullify people's tempo, but in general, in the past when I was watching the fights, he can really apply the pressure. I just feel like on the night, depending on which Teofimo turns up, you know, he can be a little bit temperamental. But if he's on it, which he should be because it's such a big, huge event in New York, his hometown as well. I feel like he should shine, and I think his lateral movement and his sharp shooting from the outside should see him do enough.
Just want to pick your brains on just two big topics. Obviously, we've seen with that Times Square card as well, Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia on the card. We know what
Yeah.
happened last year between those two in a probably one of the most mental build-ups to a fight we've seen in a long time. It seems they're going to be targeting a big rematch for later in the year, but what do you
Yeah.
make of seeing them on the same card but not against each other?
Well, it builds intrigue, so I don't think it's a bad thing. Stuff like this has been done in the past, and it always sort of whets the appetite for fans further down the line to see them both fighting each other. So I think it's a good idea. Um, you know, probably will sell the fight a lot better, especially if both guys come through and do a number on their opponents and sort of win emphatically. It'll sort of build the rematch even better, especially from Haney's point of view, because Garcia, pretty much dominated the fight the first time. So selling the rematch, you're gonna have Garcia a heavy favourite. Whereas if Haney can sort of perform as he has done in the past and look explosive, then it might make sort of switch people's opinions. So yeah, it sets it up nicely.
And then just last one, we've seen all the talk, big fight coming up at the end of April. Chris Eubank Jr., Conor Benn. I'm sure a million people have already asked you about it. But just looking at one part of it, we've seen last night that Eubank Jr.'s been fined 100 grand for the slap with the egg. Do you think that is a fair punishment for Eubank?
It's a lot of dough in it, and in all honesty, worse things have happened at press conferences and stuff. So it does sound a bit harsh. 100 grand's a lot of money. But I just seen Eubank's reaction there. He said worth every penny, which if that's his attitude about it and his mindset, then fair play to him. 100 grand's a lot of money.
How do you see the rehydration clause coming into play by the time the two get into the ring?
What is it?
He's got from weighing in on the Friday, he's allowed to put on 10 extra pounds and is believed to be weighing in before 10 a.m. on fight day.
So it's the same as the IBF rules,
Yes.
which I'm not a fan of because I just feel like once you've weighed in, and that's it. Um, but having said that, from 10 a.m. in the morning to 10 o'clock at night is another 12 hours. So I'd guess even if he only puts £10 on, which is the rule, he'll have another £10 on him by the time he gets in the ring on the night. So yeah, I don't see it being an issue, but but I don't like that rule because the official weigh-in is the official weigh-in, and then what you weigh after you've weighed in is no one's business except yours.
How dangerous can these rehydration clauses be? You make an interesting point there and highlighting that you're not a fan of them. So how dangerous do you think they can be?
Well, it's not even the danger element of it for me. It's just the fact that what the rules are the rules. You know, you making your own rules up to try and gain an advantage shouldn't be allowed because any commission across the world, when once you've weighed in the official weigh-in, that's it, it's done. I know when you're fighting for an IBF title, you have to abide by their rules, which is the £10 the next day. But you don't have to if it's a unification fight. If a different governing body is also involved in that fight. So this is where we have problems. Talking about stuff. Everyone trying to get this UFC model, and there's been all this stuff going on about Dana White coming in, getting involved and stuff like that. Part of the problem, what people have been complaining about for years and years, is the governing bodies have got so many different types of rules compared to each other's rules. There should be one overseeing governing body which creates the rules, and even the commissions have to somebody to answer to then, because certain things happen where where commissions or the governing bodies act in a certain way and they have no one to answer to. So we need an overseeing governing body, in my opinion, where where even the promoters or the commissions have liability for certain decisions what they make, because there's no way the WBA, the WBC, the IBF, the WBO should all have different rules. A lot of them are very similar, but like three knockdown rules. Some governing bodies don't have it, some do. The bell can't save you in the 12th round, or can save you in the 12th round, but can't in the rest of the rounds. But some of them don't have that rule. Like, it's so confusing. So there should be one set of universal rules for everyone to abide by.
Do you feel, obviously, you mentioned Dana White coming in with this TKO group? Do you feel him coming in could bring that universal set of rules that you mentioned?
I hope so. If we've got to try and look at these things as positive. If Turkey Al Sheikh is gone to Dana White and he's gone, we need to. He's basically saying, I love this sport, but I want to improve it and make it better. How do we do it? And if that's the goals and intentions, then good. If it means that there's going to be one world champion and one set of rules for everyone, and then as over a period of time, even if it coexists alongside the WBC, WBO, IBF, etc., then they might then go, okay, we understand that we've got it wrong a little bit, and we're all going to fall into line and bring these rules. They won't be massive changes. They're only small little subtle changes which will make a big difference.
And then just lastly from me, going back to Eubank Jr. Ben, how do you see the fight going when you think it through in your head? How does it play out?
I mean, the only way I can look at it is these weight divisions for a reason. And the Eubank is naturally a lot bigger than Conor Benn. Conor Benn, pound for pound, punches harder than Eubank, but will he be able to carry that power up to middleweight? And unless Chris Eubank getting down to the weight has weakened him, I can't see Conor Benn's power giving him a problem. So for all intents and purposes, I just think that size will be the biggest factor, and that means that the only person I see winning is Chris Eubank. I would be very surprised if Conor Benn wins.
Fair enough, Jamie. Really appreciate your time today as always. Good to catch up, and hopefully we can catch up again soon.
Cheers, Josh.